So, hey guys, Chauzu here. So, I'm a bit late to the new Kizuna units analysis. I thought I'd do a mashup here. We're going to talk about the new Kizuna batch, but we're also going to talk about the Sugo, which has actually dropped now. So I'll take the time to talk about, in general, about the Kizuna Sugos, what you should keep in mind, and in general, like, should you pull on these Sugos? So yeah, let's jump into it. We actually got a Dressrosa batch. We got a new Diamante, new Treble, new Pika. And this is actually a huge deal. Like if we go to the character lists, like the only one of these has released since I started playing during the Stampede debut on Global. It's basically this free-to-play support Diamante that you can get in the Recollection Archive. This is the only one of these who has released for like 4 or 5 years, so that's pretty crazy. This is a great support, by the way, that you should get from the Recollection Archive. Like the latest Treble unit, as far as I know, is the Doflamingo and Treble. They were already released when I started playing, so that's been a long time. And as for Pika, I actually have no idea who the latest Pika unit is. One of these, maybe the Raid, maybe the Colo, I don't know. But finally we're getting new ones, and I think that's super cool. I think they've been doing a good job lately in getting different units and arcs representations. That's very nice. But with that said, let's see what they do. Treble is Driven Striker Int. So this is basically a new Driven batch. The units are Int and Psi. This coincides really well with the Hawkins and Killer batch, and obviously also works with the new 6+ Barto and Cavendish. But yeah, these units are designed around having 6 driven units, which I think is interesting. When the Kizuna starts eventually, like if you do one team for all, you want to do a mono-driven anyway, since the only one team for all you can play with the boosted unit is like a driven int psi, basically. So works out pretty well. One thing to note though is that this Treble has reduced special limit usage duration, and I think one of the variations has that. So Treble is the friend captain you want to use. If you do use him, you can probably just ignore that mechanic. I haven't looked carefully at the Kizuna though, so I'm not going to say too much. I usually never look at Kizuna during treasure map, one thing at a time. But yeah, enough talking, let's get to the point. Treble will have a booster captain, we can look at that later. As for the special, he changes driven character slots, including block, to matching. You get a chain boundary starting at 2.25, which is pretty low sadly, but it's still a chain boundary, and it can go up to 35 times chain, so that can still be very useful. If you have 6 driven characters on the crew, you remove death up by 6 and paralysis by 6, otherwise you remove them by 5. So yeah, Treble actually works okay without a mono-driven team, but obviously it's preferred. So yeah, very good unit in general. The negative I will say for all of these 3 units is that they have basically no support units to attach, sadly. The positive I will say is that all of these units can work very well with the Doflamingo and Sugar Legends that require one of the commander or such as a sub to activate super type or super class. So all of this will be great, especially for this Sugar Legend. So yeah, Treble is pretty nice. I should have probably looked at the Sailors too. Int matching, yeah, okay, and none of these have support, sadly. It sucks that they always do that in Kizuna. As for Diamante, he has Shipbind. I haven't checked if Shipbind is part of the Kizuna or not. It says Fear here, but the icon is pretty clearly Shipbind, so yeah. Diamante Int Driven Slasher. The special, -2 CD for Driven, reduces the spear by 6 turns. And if you have 6 driven characters on the crew, gives a 2.5 times attack boost for Driven, otherwise a 1.75 times attack boost. And yet 2.5 times attack boost for a rare recruit is actually really high. You rarely see such high numbers, but of course it had a steep requirement, but I think that's fine. And if you don't meet the requirement, you still get something. My main complaint is probably that it doesn't do that much. -2 seed is pretty dope, but other than that, just the spear removal and attack boost. Feel like you should have done one thing more probably, but yeah, it's fine. He resists special reverse by 2 turns. So yeah, this makes me think about, because he reduces special reverse, fear will be better, which makes me wonder if he actually has fear, but it says Shippa in there, so should probably check what he has on JP. Usually Global can make mistakes on JP that JP doesn't have. Finally, Pika, the only Psy unit of the batch, Psy-driven powerhouse. No special limit breaks for this guy. Special, 10% HP cut for all enemies. +1 chain boost for 1 turn. 90% damage reduction for 1 turn. If you have 6 Driven on the crew, reduces damage reduction by 6. Reduces special bind by 6. And if you don't, you reduce them by 5 instead. CA does quite a lot, but a lot of it feels like fluff, like the HP cut, which is okay, mainly because you can use supports like Trash Map Sandy to get an ore boost, for example. But like damage wrestle is fine, special bind removal is fine. Damage reduction is getting more valuable with the damage reduction attack boost stuff and such, but yeah, I feel like this is the weakest unit of the batch, I guess. Hard to say since it does pretty good utility, but as for the sailors, this is special bind, which makes sense. Driven's size slots have matching slot effects, so that's dope. Yeah, good batch. Normally I will definitely be pulling here, but I have my no pull April challenge, so I will not be pulling even if I'd like. Basically, let's talk a bit about the Kizuna Sugos in general. There are 2 kinds of Kizuna Sugos. We have legend debuts and non-legend debuts. And it might sound contradictory, but the better Sugos are actually the non-legend debuts, mainly because the steps are a lot better. These are the steps for the non-legend debut Sugos. You get a 30 gem discount at first. You get basically a dead multi on second, but then 3rd to 5th is pretty good. 3rd is a recommended character, where you can get any of the units on this picture, including the legends and often the 1 or 2 filler rare recruits. 4th is a new legend. On non-legend debut Sugos, it's usually 10 legends, and then on the legend debut Sugos, it's 15 legends. So on the non-legend debut Sugos, it's high chance to get what you actually want, while on the debut, well, you can pull the debut legend maybe. And then 5th is a guaranteed new character, which is any of the commanders in this case. But if you had a legend debut instead, we wouldn't have any new character steps, and believe me, doing like 5 multis and not getting any new unit at all is one of the first feelings on these kind of Sugos. So yeah, it's actually pretty dope. Let's drop into rates a bit. Let's just talk the general rates at first. These Sugos, like both Treasure Map and Kizuna, can often feature debut legends from the monthly batch, as long as it's not an anniversary Sugo-Fest or Super Sugo-Fest, which I guess is pretty rare nowadays. So for this case, Killer's actually available, but as you'll see, they basically half his rates here. It's a bit more than half, it looks like. So pretty unlikely to get Killer, but at least it's a small value add-on. But I don't want to defend this at all. Like a year and a half ago, this was not standard practice. Then they started doing it. They've not returned. I love for them to stop doing this BS, because there has to be other ways to make the monthly debuts more value than gutting their rates for like 1 month. But yeah, that's what Bandai has been doing. Otherwise, for the other legends, it's the standard 0.5% rate. Might even be a bit higher to compensate for lower killer rates, but yeah, as you see, for Striper, for example, it's 0.528%. So I guess that's the rate for everybody but killer, and then killer is a bit lower. As for the rare recruit debuts, it's a bit silly, but they have actually pretty low rates. This time we have 3 debuting, so it's pretty okay. But the rates don't get higher if we have less. Like even if you have 2, you don't really get about this rate. And the silliest thing is if you have like a legend debut, because I said legends are 0.5% minimum, but often the legend has higher rate than the new rare recruit, and that's just dumb. So basically it's pretty low chance to get any of the rare recruit outside of the good steps. But for this particular Kizuna, it might actually be more realistic. It's like 1% chance total, which is pretty decent actually. Let's check out the good steps. First we have step 3, which is the recommended step. Here you can pull either of the legends that are on the banner image, which in this case is Prospero, Drake, and Barto and Cavendish. Yeah, there's one here you probably don't want to pull, but yeah, that's usually how it is. The 6+ of the month is usually featured on the Kizuna Sugo-Fest, which makes sense since they get their Super Evolution here. But yeah, I'm sure many people will like either Prospero or X Drake, both great legends. And then you have the debuting rare recruits. They take up most of the rate, is like 66% total, a bit less than that. So 2/3 chance to get one of the debut rare recruits. And then we have the fillers, which is basically the nightmare of most people pulling. But if you don't have them, they are pretty decent, even if Beckman is starting to get pretty old now. But if you don't have him, you do want him, mainly for his support. So decent chance to get one of the new ones on this step. And then obviously on the 5th step, we have the guaranteed, which only has Pika, Treble, and Diamante. So if you have, so you're always guaranteed to get a new one on the 5th. So that's why I usually do 5 multis on every Kizuna Sugo. This is the first one I skip, but it's only because of my personal no pull challenge. One final thing I like to say before ending the video that is also pretty bad practice, I'd say. Like if we check the event info, like we see here that all of these are boosters. Treble, Diamante, Pika, all have stat boost, all have super effect against every type, everything. But then we have that Treble has an exclusive captain ability, which makes him usable up to 5.25 times attack. And I just think this is so dumb, because it's not like there's any special chance of getting Treble. They actually made him less likely to pull than the others. So I don't see like why they just can't boost the captain ability of all of these. It will also help other people who haven't pulled, because there will be more people able to put up boosters as captain for people to share. Now Diamante and Peak are basically useless as captains. You only put them as sub. So you have to be lucky to have a few people who pull Treble and actually use Treble as captain, which is also not always viable. For me personally, it's not a big issue. I always have quite a few who do pull the new boosted captain ability, but for most people they have really struggled to find one. And I say it's the biggest issue in general for the non-super boss Kizunas. But yeah, that's the end of this video. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.